Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be talking about the ARP Yamato, which is quite essentially a Yamato that Wargaming have decided to put up on sale. Despite repeated explanations and reassurances that Wargaming will never ever sell a tier 10, now they're selling a tier 10 ARP Yamato with the included legendary module that you normally have to grind a fair bit for. So basically you can buy yourself straight into tier 10 into the Yamato with a legendary module. Not exactly one of the greatest examples of making money we've ever seen from Wargaming. Note that this game starts a bit weird because my Smolensk is not going A, he actually sails away from it, and my Yamato is AFK. So I'm forced to do something I generally hate doing, and that is I'm forced to abandon this flank because the enemy carrier is focusing this side and our carrier doesn't seem very interested, which means that we're going to be under tremendous pressure, and Yamato can't really stand alone, especially against the likes of a Hindenburg and Thunder that are pushing up down the south, and with a potential Shima, and I think it was even a Holland last seen, at least the Shima was seen going this way. So sticking around at this point is just suicide, so I decide, well, we need to start disengaging from this flank straight from the get-go. My Holland is also going center, so there's basically no chance of me doing anything down south, and we're going to be forced to disengage. There are a couple of things I want to highlight though before I start. First of all, today is Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday, and tomorrow at Sunday 18 CST, I will be casting the Warships Masters Invitational. I casted it the last time, I think it was during the summer, and people really enjoyed it. So they're hosting another one, this time an international version, where both EU and NA top teams will be taking part. For those not familiar with Warships Masters Invitational, it is a tournament where teams get to pick, they have 100 points and they get to pick their lineup of ships, and each ship costs a differing amount, so it's basically a way of balancing tier 10, basically making ships like Z52 and Yu Yang extremely cheap, but then making ships like Petropavlovsk and Smoland and such, making them incredibly expensive. So if you want one of those strong ships, you're gonna have to basically save points somewhere else. And it's been very popular, people have enjoyed watching it and watching the pretty unique comps that we see. I mean, we get to see a lot of ships we don't see a lot in competitive lately, like Woosters and Zaos and things that people don't generally play because it's not, there are better alternatives, but in Warships Master they are cheaper. So that's coming up this Sunday, tomorrow, if you guys are interested. 18 CST, pretty easy to Google what time is 18 CST in my time. So if you guys are interested, I will be streaming that. I'm trying to get my midway to move in the meanwhile. If I'm leaving a flank, it's always good to let your team know, hey, I'm moving, pay attention, disengage, don't stick around. And I must have pinged this midway about 50 times during this battle trying to get him to move, but the problem with carriers is that Wargaming has designed a class which most of the time never is forced to move, so the few times when they actually have to move, especially at the start of the game, they tend to just sit there like kind of drooling, stationary, showing no awareness, showing no, basically just basic lack of common thought is happening. He's sending out planes and so forth, but he's actually not moving, so this game is already looking extremely shaky. The other thing I wanted to highlight, probably a much bigger thing than Warships Masters, even though Warships Master is very cool, Wargaming has gotten their first sponsored tournament, and I've been invited to cast that one as well. That is happening the 5th and 6th of December, aka 2 weeks from now. And this is very unique because this is a Verizon sponsored tournament, and the prize money available is actually quite significant. In fact, they're handing out $30,000, $15,000 to the first place, $10,000 to the second, $5,000 to third. I can put up a little chart. Basically, what happens is every single region is getting to take part. EU, NA, CIS, C. All 4 regions for the first time, duking it out, seeing who is really the best region. So there's not just a lot of like global bragging rights available, but there's also a fair bit of money for the first place with $15,000. In fact, it's by far the biggest tournament World Warships has ever had. So that's going to go down in 2 weeks, 5th and 6th of December, and I will be casting that, and it will be available on my stream as well. So that should be very, very spicy indeed, because a common excuse for a lot of tournaments when people lose is that, well, we weren't trying anyway because blah blah blah, whatever excuse. But in this tournament, you can guarantee that people will absolutely be trying their absolute hardest, because walking away with a neat 15,000 for a weekend's worth of playing is a pretty nifty deal. Moving on to the game itself. My midway, of course, completely ignored all our pings, all our reason, all our attempts to get him to move, and only when he started getting shot at has he started reversing. And of course, midway is stupidly tanky. That armored deck, the fires only last 5 seconds, they actually can't detonate. Yeah, that's a thing. Carriers actually can't detonate in World of Warships. And yeah, and of course his damage can last like a full minute. So basically it's going to take them a long time to kill him, and that's really what I'm betting on, since it's not going to be useful in any other way. What I'm trying to do here is utilize the fact that he's the greatest shell sponge in the game right now. The enemy team wants to, of course, kill him because he's the biggest threat. But on the other hand, an angle carrier takes a really long time to die. So I'm just going to use this fact that he's kind of the decoy, and I'm just going to take pot shots at these ships that are pushing through this flank. Especially the Thunder can be extremely nasty to deal with in a Yamato because, well, his HE, his accuracy and his HE is disgusting. I'm in a position to disengage if need be. I'm keeping an eye out on the Kremlin in the center. There's a possibility the Kremlin might be getting some nasty pot shots and the Venezia is going to be getting some nasty hits on me. But ultimately, I'm willing to take the trade. I'm willing to take some hits from there just to be able to potentially stop this push. Because if we do not stop this push coming through this flank, they will run us over, they will box us in, and we will die, because I have 3 battleships up north, which aren't really doing a whole lot. The Kremlin Thunder Republic, they have a Shima spotting for them, but they're kind of just sitting in our spawn. So if I allow this push to go through, we're gonna be boxed in and guaranteed killed. So at this point the idea is to stop the push as quickly as possible. My Des Moines is pushing a bit too aggressively there. I think the Venezia is gearing up to take a shot at him. There's a radar, so the Shima has also been playing aggressive. I see him on the minimap, so I hold my fire and I start looking for the Shima. He is spotted, hoping to get some good hits in. Always shoot DDs. I say this repeatedly. The Shima was pretty smart though. He full stopped and turned, and it looks like I only get 1 hit in. 1 hit in is still good, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough to secure the kill. My team is focus firing him quite well, and thanks to the Zao, we actually do take down the Shima. So good job by the Des Moines. Now he just needs to angle away, because that is a lot of broadside he's providing. But on the other hand, I'm providing a fair bit of broadside as well, trying to help stop this push before they get too close. Gambling a bit here with the Kremlin volleys, but I can't allow these guys to just charge up this flank uncontested. On the other hand, we get the Shima, but our own carrier dies. In fact, we're down 4 ships to the enemy's 2 ships killed, and I'm under so much pressure here from all these crossfires and all this focus fire that I'm forced to disengage. The Kremlin has finally found his angles and his arcs, so that means I need to worry about his AP as well, because Kremlin AP pen is quite nasty. Venezia is reversing. Venezia doesn't really accelerate that fast anymore, so I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to hit him with that volley. But we do have to angle against potential Kremlin reprisal. I only get 2 hits in, but it is Yamato, 460mm guns. Now Yamato, I should probably quick rehash on this ship. 460mm guns means you overmatch 32mm, which means, for example, a reason why I shot the Thunder so much is because I overmatch almost all of his armor. You also have a great pen, and with the legendary module that they're selling, you also have really good dispersion, being able to land some really nasty volleys at range. Still though, while the pen is great, I'm under no illusions that I'm able to citadel this Kremlin. Kremlin's broadside armor is just so stupidly angled and tanky, and as you can see, I shattered on the actual citadel. So you can't. It's not really actually vulnerable. It just pretends to be. The turret force is extremely slow, and the ship itself, while it appears tanky in terms of health pool and having that 57mm deck armor, the citadel on the ship is huge, and you want to avoid brawling in a Yamato at all costs. I'm being crossfired from every angle at this point, and I'm just forced to kite away even further because As mentioned, the Yamato isn't that fast either. You can't get up to 30 knots. I think its default speed is 27, might be 28.4 with the flag. The big point here is the big guns, but basically everything else on the ship is quite underwhelming. Huge citadel, quite slow, terrible AA, terrible turret traverse, secondary is nothing to write home about. The reason you play the Yamato is for the gun power and nothing else. But luckily in World of Warships, you don't need a whole lot of else. If you got good guns on a ship, you can make up for a whole lot of weaknesses. Trying to get some shots in at the Samars, and I get pretty unfortunate. I get a second double fire set on me, and this is while running fire prevention, so really unfortunate. And they just keep focusing me from every possible angle. I'm not sure if it's because I'm an ARP Yamato. These ships tend to get a fair bit of focus because, well, people kind of assume, quite rightly so, that the people who are willing to spend so much money to buy an ARP Yamato are probably pretty potato players. We've seen quite a lot of players with about 100 battles sailing around in ARP Yamatos and getting themselves killed or just being useless at the edge of the map. Either one, so you can expect to see a lot of focus fire when you play the ship because, well, people think you're kind of an easy kill, someone easy to go and delete, and wow, that guy just really bounced my AP. That is unfortunate. Holland requests support and he is trying to push in, and with the DD dead, I'm actually very happy to help support this. The Kremlin, for some reason, instead of pushing up, he's actually turned around. If the Kremlin kept pushing, I could have been in serious trouble because he could have kind of boxed us in. He could have killed the Thunder, then kept pushing and basically got in a really good crossfire, but he decides to sail down to A instead, and I am more than happy with this because it gives me a breather. It gives me some time to get some of my healing back, gives me time to get my heal on cooldown, ready for use again, and this also allows me to turn my ship around and potentially start pushing here. Finally starting to get some work in. The Hindenburg is 23.4 kilometers away. Now you'd think this is pretty impossible shot, he's angled as well, but Yamato has a pretty consistent shell velocity, it has good dispersion, and more importantly, it can overmatch his armor. So I'm at 23.5 kilometers, I managed to snipe a double citadel on him using only my front guns while he was turning. So that's the Hindenburg down, and now we've actually gotten a ship advantage thanks to that. My Holland is very happy about this because, well, now if the plane spots him, there won't be a Hindenburg farming him. On the other hand, the Hindenburg himself is actually not very happy about this, and those that speak Russian, and more shatters on full broadside Kremlin, what a great ship. Those that speak Russian can probably translate what our Hindenburg friend is saying, but let's just say I'm not gonna do it on YouTube because that's gonna be against YouTube content guidelines. That guy is very frustrated and rather annoyed that he got killed like that. I keep shooting the Kremlin, getting more shatters, at which point I decide this is literally a waste of time, like his armor is too stupid, and I try to look for basically anything else to shoot, except the Kremlin himself, because that ship, the problem with the Kremlin is, of course, is even though the broadside armor isn't that thick, it is extremely angled, and when your shells fall in, they hit an extremely steeply angled broadside armor, and basically you need a stupid amount of pen or really fast shell velocity to go through it. For example, something like Slava, if you want long range citadels, and the Yamato simply cannot do it. So I switched to someone squishier, like a nosy Yamato instead, and try to get some damage in on him instead, while at the same time creating distance with the Kremlin and trying to put an island between me and the Venezia so I don't hit any unnecessary damage there. The idea here is to delete the Yamato as quickly as possible, especially since my Des Moines seems to have decided to rush him, which is a very debatable choice indeed. I try to hit his overmatchable nose. The nose on pretty much all battleships is 32 millimeters, and the Yamato can punch straight through that with the power of the overmatch. I have him deleted, the Kremlin is turning out, so I am able to turn in the way I like to because, well, Kremlin will struggle to get the shots in from that angle and that range to get any sort of consistent damage in. At this point I'm looking at my Republic, he's still on the border, so it's gonna be up to me to somehow help turn this game around. Well, we've already done a fair bit, we still have a points advantage, but if the Venezia caps B, we're gonna be in trouble. So I'm gonna push in towards the Kremlin while trying to get shots at the Venezia at the same time. I don't have too many high hopes on actually getting good damage on the Kremlin, but hey, the couple of overpens we get helps. Requesting support from the Republic, but the Republic actually manages to snipe the Venezia giving too much broadside in C, and at this point we're basically impossible for us to lose. The only risk really is the Hanlan somehow getting killed and the Za getting killed by the carrier, which can absolutely happen. 5 minutes remaining, 3 minutes on the score timer, but 5 minutes total time. But the carrier, well, we have no real AA, as you can tell. Neither Zhao or I have any AA, and Midway already kind of ignores a lot of the AA, so he's absolutely going to be able to kill us both, should he so choose. I guess we can be lucky it's not an FDR or a Manfred von Richthofen, because those ships are so broken, they make Midway and Hakuryu actually seem like balanced ships. Not that they are, but they give the impression. So we are in that sense fortunate that it is merely a Midway on the enemy team. He's got full broadside stationary, so I take a shot at him. He's 27.5 kilometers away, the Midway is, but once again, especially on broadside targets at long range, Yamato is surprisingly consistent. I snipe off the Kremlin, who was giving far too much. Well, he was getting close enough that I could consistently hit his superstructure. The Hallan did the majority of the work, of course, but I made sure to delete him so the Hallan doesn't lose all his health. At this point there is only 4 minutes remaining, so the only thing really left to show here is just Yamato gun consistency. Midway 27 and what? 27.2 kilometers away and making a turn. Shell travel time is 17.6 seconds. Shots that might seem really difficult or almost impossible in most battleships, the Yamato can actually pull off. The shell travel time is incredible. There's a bit of lagginess on the replay when you shoot this far. You see the shells are a bit jerking a bit, that's what happens, but it does showcase the consistency of the shells. 25,000 damage on a target that is, well, almost on the other side, as far on the other side of the map as it can be. I don't take quite enough lead on the following volleys, but it does really showcase the dispersion of the ship. And the reason why Yamato, regardless of all the changes, regardless of the nerfs, buffs, left, right and center, Yamato is still a strong ship. It is consistently powerful. And the reason for this is it has good guns. And this is the reason why whenever a new battleship comes out, my main focus is always on the guns. Yes, the other features are nice, the other aspects like tankiness and speed and all the secondaries, these things are always good. But what makes a battleship great is the guns. And it's one of the reasons Thunder and Slava are both so stupid, and it's also one of the reasons why Yamato is still, to this day, even though it was released, what, 5 years ago, it is still so damn good. I don't take enough lead, unfortunately, to actually kill the Midway with the last volley, but ultimately it doesn't matter because we do manage to turn this game into a win. 257,000 damage, running credit and XP flags, so of course I rake in a fair chunk. Confederate, devastating, dreadnought, fireproof, and high caliber. Basically, did a lot of damage, tanked a lot of damage because they really wanted to kill me at some times during this game. 4 citadels, 3 kills, only 5 planes shut down, but you really shouldn't expect that in a Yamato or IGN ship in general. Team score wise, 3,300 base XP, which is of course nice. I actually had a fair bit of work done on my team. It was a rare case of a domination battle that actually went on for a fair time. Even with our Midway dying straight from the beginning, which I still don't understand how people manage to do that, but in part I do blame Wargaming for making the class so incredibly, well, noob friendly. They've really made it as silly as you can, like left point and click adventure while you sit still in spawn, automatic consumables, no fires, no detonation. Like there's so much hand holding going on that I guess we can't really be surprised that many of the carrier players we see these days really are the worst of the bunch. But sadly it's affecting the level of play we see, which isn't exactly that positive. Detailed report wise, 94 hits, 257,000 damage, which really does highlight just how much damage you do per shell. Even with all the Urpens I had, I got a fair few Urpen ribbons and a fair few shatter ribbons, especially when shooting the Kremlin, but the damage is still consistently high. So a very effective ship. On the other hand, not the best of fire RNG there, 48,000 damage eaten from the fires. But hey, we stayed alive with 1.8 million potential, and we did manage to help carry this match. I can show you my recommended build for the Yamato. It is, not surprising, the same as my recommended build for the ARP Yamato, because they are exactly identical, and it's just Wargaming's way of making a quick buck by breaking a promise. Well, they've broken a couple times now. We will never sell tier 10 ships. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised. I don't know how many of you remember, but back in the day we were promised they wouldn't put any torpedoes on ships, and then they released turrets, which was a premium that had torpedoes. So, yeah, any promises made, hold until they want to make money. Then they are merely a suggestion. Let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Alright, as always, let me start with the equipment. Secondary survival, because you basically never lose your turrets anyway. Additional tankiness, better dispersion, even more tankiness, concealment, and the legendary mod. If you don't have it, I used to run a reload, but ultimately the legendary just fits these heavy hitting guns far better. Spotter plane, because the fighter plane is an amusing little fireworks show that actually doesn't do anything most of the time. It even watches the planes strike you while not even paying attention. So yeah, it's actually gotten stealth nerfed in the recent patch as well. It takes it even longer to react, so that's a really nice bonus, because God forbid we can defend ourselves. Captain build wise, priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, fire prevention, concealment expert. You might actually go, especially if you have Yamamoto, you might actually go expert marksman before AR, simply because turret verse is really slow on the Yamato itself. You do want expert loader, and you do want to run a jack of all trades. Expert loader, of course, good for those situations when you're up against solo DDs. Not as valuable on Yamato as on many other battleships, because you do kind of want to maintain that mid-range. You don't want to get into close range, especially against DDs, because the ship handles and the turret verse is so poor and you don't really have any secondaries. But if you're forced to, or you see a DD coming in to rush you, expert loader can save your bacon, so I do still find it to be a recommended skill. Flag-wise, survival, which means reduction in fire, heal, reduction in flooding, speed, and faster consumables. I run AA and secondaries, but as I mentioned, the AA is, well, it's about as useful as all the other AA in the game, with a few exceptions. It doesn't do a whole lot. As for maneuverability, you are very slow, and you kind of have to play this ship based on that as well. Yamato is not a Kremlin, it is not a frontline pusher. If you try to push in too aggressively, you will get yourself killed. That doesn't mean that you can't eat steady damage like I did in my game. There were times where I was willingly eating damage just so I could deal some in return, and that is something you can do in the Yamato because the guns hit so hard. That is provided you don't expose the Citadel. The Citadel on this ship is absolutely gigantic. If you're full broadside, you will be easily Citadel, and if you try to use your back turret against nosing targets, everyone knows, shoot the Yamato under the front turret and you will Citadel him. It basically provides a flat surface to any enemy shells, which makes it incredibly easy to Citadel from angles. So generally speaking, Yamato, if you have to brawl other ships, you stay nose in. Don't try to use your back turret. You might get 3 shells off, but you might eat 3 Citadels in return, and that is not a very good trade. Anyway, that was all for me regarding the Yamato. I will see you guys, well, I will see some of you guys already tomorrow for the casting of the Warships Masters Invitational, but if not, I'll see you guys next vid. And thank you as always for the support. I saw a bunch of you guys subbed after the last video, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you very much, my dudes. I'll talk to you guys next time.